And it wouldn't surprise me at all if this show ends up becoming an even bigger hit for HBO, because if people don't know, in terms of total viewers, this is one of the most popular shows on HBO of the last 2 years.
It was meant to be just another episode, but the final scene of Harry Mason revealed a shocking betrayal so unexpected that even the cast couldn't believe it. After begging Raymond Burr to film one more season in color, CBS betrayed him, without so much as a phone call. The crew continued filming when they received the gut-wrenching news: the show was over forever. In a bizarre twist, the man who created Perry Mason himself appeared in the final courtroom scene ever filmed. The cameras caught real tears as 9 years of television history came to an end, concealing a secret no one was supposed to know. Earl Stanley Gardner had no love for Hollywood. He had witnessed firsthand how they had twisted his beloved Perry Mason. The 1930s films failed to capture the essence of the character, and the radio show was even worse. It turned his sharp, intelligent courtroom stories into melodramatic fluff. Gardner despised it so much that he pulled Mason from one project entirely, vowing never to let anyone use his creation again, unless he had full control. But then came Gail Patrick. She wasn't just another Hollywood name, she was different. With a background in law and a career spanning over 60 films, Patrick understood Gardner's vision better than anyone. Through her husband, Gardner's literary agent, she built a connection strong enough for real conversations with the man himself. She listened. She respected his wishes. Slowly, she earned his trust, which led to the creation of Paisano Productions, Gardner's own production company, with Gail at the helm as president, making her one of the first women to hold such a powerful role in television. When they pitched Perry Mason to CBS, the network had a very different idea. CBS wanted it live and dramatic, like a soap opera. Patrick swiftly shot that down. She understood the pressure of a live courtroom drama and how it could break even the best actors. But CBS pressed on with their soap opera vision, creating The Edge of Night. It ran for years, but had little in common with Perry Mason. Meanwhile, Patrick pushed for something smarter, filmed episodes, just like I Love Lucy. This format allowed for polished performances, which could be rerun for years. Patrick's instincts were spot on. The change she championed revolutionized courtroom dramas, making Perry Mason timeless. In 1956, Paisano Productions took a massive risk. They funded the pilot episode, The Case of the Moth-Eaten Ming, out of their own pockets, $100,000, a small fortune for the time. It was a gamble, but the quality was undeniable. Gardner was flawed. He wrote to Gail, astonished that someone had finally captured his vision. For the first time, someone truly understood what Perry Mason was meant to be. However, casting the perfect Mason was no easy task. Big names like Fred McMurray, Richard Carlson, and William Holden were tested, but none seemed right. The issue was simple. Gardner had never described Mason's appearance in his books. The character was about presence, intellect, and control, not looks. Then came Raymond Burr, who didn't audition for Mason at all. He came in to try for the role of District Attorney Hamilton Berger. Known for playing villains, he figured he'd be a good fit for the bad guy. But something unexpected happened. Every time Burr read opposite someone auditioning for Mason, he stole the scene. His presence was magnetic. He exuded authority, power. Eventually, the producers could no longer ignore it. Raymond Burr was meant to be Perry Mason. The real test came when Gardner watched Burr's screen test. The moment was electric. Gardner stood up, pointed, and shouted, "That's Perry Mason." After years of frustration, Gardner finally saw his character brought to life exactly as he had envisioned. That moment sealed it. Burr had earned the role. Casting the rest of the team was no less thoughtful. Barbara Hale was chosen to play Della Street, Mason's loyal secretary. William Hopper, who had auditioned for Mason, was recast as private detective Paul Drake. William Tallman landed the role of Hamilton Berger, the DA who could never quite beat Mason in court. Ray Collins was cast as Lieutenant Tragg, the skeptical but principled police detective. The chemistry among them was instant. When the show debuted in 1957, the audience felt the magic. Burr's dedication didn't stop at acting. Gail Patrick told him directly, "You're perfect, but you need to lose weight." He took the challenge to heart, shedding almost 100 pounds in just 1 month. The transformation was remarkable. No longer typecast as the villain, Burr emerged as the confident, sharp legal mind that audiences would trust for years to come. But the battle to maintain his weight wasn't over. Over the course of the show's long run, Burr gradually gained some of the weight back. Still, he kept working. He once said the long filming hours helped keep the weight off, but the pressure to maintain his appearance weighed on him. Behind the scenes, Burr quietly fought to stay in shape, all while delivering one of television's most iconic performances. When Perry Mason hit the airwaves in the late 1950s, it wasn't just another crime show. It was something different, something smarter. The team behind it took legal accuracy so seriously that it almost felt as if they were building a real law firm, not just a TV show. Producer Ben Brady wasn't just a TV mogul, he was a lawyer, too. Having represented big names in Hollywood, he brought his legal expertise to Perry Mason. Gene Wang, the story editor, was also a law school graduate, ensuring every script avoided glaring courtroom mistakes. And then there was Gail Patrick Jackson. Before Hollywood beckoned, she almost became a lawyer herself. But once she entered the world of television, she kept a sharp eye on every legal detail, from the way a lawyer should walk into court to how they should question a witness. These three powerhouse figures worked side by side, even during casting. They weren't just looking for actors, they needed performers who could look and sound like real lawyers. Before the show ever aired, they spent nearly 2 years perfecting every single detail. But none of it would have mattered without Earl A. Stanley Gardner, the man who created Perry Mason. Gardner didn't just hand over his character and walk away. No, he demanded control, real, unflinching control. He struck a deal with CBS that gave him 60% ownership of the show, an unheard of arrangement at the time. Every script had to go through a meticulous review process before it reached him. Once it did, he'd tear it apart, sending it back with notes so precise, they could have come straight from a lawyer's office. These weren't suggestions, they were demands. If something didn't fit, it didn't make the cut. Writers feared him, but that's exactly how Gardner wanted it. He'd seen the studios butcher Perry Mason in the 1930s, and he wasn't about to let it happen again. He even created a Bible for the show, outlining how Perry should behave, speak, and think. CBS agreed to everything, just to get the rights. And Gardner stayed involved, overseeing all 271 episodes, still writing novels on the side. Then came the pilot episode, The Case of the Moth-Eaten Mink. Filmed in late 1956 but airing months later, the pilot didn't look like anything viewers had seen on television before. The lighting was dark, brooding, and moody. Shadows crept across walls, making the atmosphere feel more like a classic film noir than a courtroom drama. Gangsters lurked in the background. Strange messages were hidden under tables. There was even a shootout in Perry's office. Raymond Burr looked different too, slimmer, sharper, almost unrecognizable with a tough guy hat that made him look more like a detective than a lawyer. Even the set pieces were raw and gritty. Paul Drake wasn't yet the blonde, polished private detective fans would later know, and the furniture had a rough, untamed edge. As the show progressed, the noir influence softened, but the core foundation remained smart, sharp, and uncompromising. The vision was simple. If you're making a legal show, it better feel like the real thing. When Perry Mason first aired in 1957, no one expected it to take over television. Yet, from the very beginning, it struck a chord with viewers. It didn't just attract an audience, it climbed the ratings ladder fast. In its first season, the show landed in 43rd place. By season 2, it shot up to 19th, and in season 3, it broke into the top 10. By its peak, Perry Mason was ranked 5th, drawing in more than 15 million households every Saturday night. CBS recognized they had a hit, so they moved the show to Thursday nights in 1962, confident it could dominate the competition. And it did. Over 9 seasons and 271 episodes, Perry Mason maintained a fierce loyalty from its audience, remaining in the top 20 until its 8th season, a nearly unheard of feat. Even CBS's top brass used the show to fend off rivals like NBC's Bonanza. But it wasn't just the ratings that made Perry Mason special, it earned deep respect from critics. In its first year, the show was nominated for an Emmy as Outstanding Dramatic Series. Raymond Burr, who embodied Perry Mason, became a star almost overnight. He won 2 Emmys for Best Lead Actor, while his co-star Barbara Hale earned 1 for Best Supporting Actress. Burr was in nearly every scene, which only made his accomplishment more impressive. And the accolades didn't stop there. Perry Mason and Burr both earned TV Guide Awards based on reader votes, proving the show's connection with everyday viewers. But perhaps the most significant recognition came from the American Bar Association, which awarded the show its first ever Silver Gavel Award for its legal accuracy and respect for the profession, even though Perry somehow won every case he took on. Perry Mason didn't just entertain, it became part of American life. From 1957 to 1962, Saturday nights at 7:30 p.m. meant one thing: Perry Mason. Families made sure dinner was done, chores were finished, and nobody made plans that would interfere with the show. It wasn't just TV, it was a ritual. The dramatic opening music set the tone, signaling another twist-filled courtroom battle. CBS strategically placed the show early in the evening so the entire family could watch together, and it worked. The show dominated its Saturday time slot for 5 consecutive years. Even when it moved to Thursdays, the loyal fans followed. That kind of loyalty was rare, but Perry Mason earned it. What made the show even more special was how it connected with people of all ages. Kids, parents, grandparents, everyone watched it. Teachers talked about it in schools, and even a group of nuns once called CBS to complain when an episode didn't air. One newspaper even joked that the nuns at St. Theodore's were as hooked on Perry Mason as anyone else. Raymond Burr understood just how deeply the show resonated with viewers. He made time to visit fans in hospitals, answered their letters, and never took their love for him and the show for granted. By the time the series ended in 1966, Perry Mason had been with its audience for almost a decade. For many, the show had become a part of their lives. Kids who started watching in grade school had grown into adults by the time the final case was closed. And their loyalty didn't end there. Decades later, when the TV movies began airing in 1985, those same fans returned, proving that Perry Mason wasn't just a fleeting hit, it was a lasting presence in people's lives. Back in the golden age of television, Perry Mason was untouchable. Every episode followed a familiar pattern. Someone died, someone got blamed, and Perry always pulled a clever trick in court. Week after week, he was the hero who never lost. But in 1963, the unthinkable happened. One episode turned everything upside down. In the case of the deadly verdict, for the first time ever, Perry Mason lost a case. In the episode The Case of the Deadly Verdict, Perry Mason's perfect streak was shattered. His client, Janice Barton, had been convicted of murdering her aunt and sentenced to death. For the first time, Perry failed. Viewers were stunned. No one had ever seen Perry Mason lose. But instead of stepping away, Perry went back into the fray, determined to find the truth. It turned out that Janice had lied about her whereabouts that night, and the real killer had carefully switched medication to frame her. The twist was so shocking that the episode was pulled from reruns for over 2 decades. When it finally aired again in 1988, it had become legendary. But that wasn't the only time the show broke boundaries. In 1966, during its 9th season, Perry Mason did something bold again. One episode, The Case of the Twice-Told Twist, was suddenly broadcast in full color. The change was jarring. Gone was the familiar black and white courtroom. Instead, the gang of car thieves stripped Perry's car down to its metal frame. This was CBS's experiment to see if viewers would embrace a full-color 10th season. Raymond Burr's blue eyes, which had never been visible before, were now front and center. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The color wasn't always convincing. Fake blood appeared as pink foam, and some fans felt the color made everything look like a stage play, too artificial. One viewer even compared it to the first time they'd seen Bonanza in color. It just didn't feel right. This episode ended up being the only one in color because the show was cancelled shortly after. But Perry Mason had already made its mark. In 1959, Perry Mason made a rare move for its time in The Case of the Blushing Pearls, an episode that centered around Japanese characters and featured Japanese actors. Nobu McCarthy played the accused, and a young George Takei appeared long before his iconic role in Star Trek. The episode took place in Little Tokyo, featuring scenes in Japanese restaurants, music inspired by traditional styles, and a plot that actually respected the culture, rather than mocking it. Even Bill Walker made history as the first black actor to have a speaking role on the show, playing a night watchman. But the episode carried an odd, almost prophetic connection to George Takei's future. A character mentioned pearls from the Sulu Seas, a strange little reference to the role Takei would later make legendary. But not every bold move worked out as planned. In 1963, Perry Mason made another attempt at breaking ground with The Case of the Skeleton's Closet. The episode featured a black judge, played by Vince Townsend Jr., a trailblazer in real-life law. But the moment was flawed. The judge didn't speak a single word. He wasn't even credited, and the courtroom lawyers didn't object to anything during the trial, making the whole scene feel awkward and hollow. This wasn't an accident, it was done on purpose. The silence was so jarring that it made waves in the press. It seemed as though the show was trying to be progressive without putting in the effort to truly break barriers. The opportunity to make a statement was missed. And then, there was the scandal that nearly derailed the show. On a quiet Saturday night in March 1960, William Tallman, best known for playing the stern district attorney Hamilton Berger on Perry Mason, found himself caught in a scandal that threatened to ruin his career. That night, police raided a West Hollywood apartment, barging in under false pretenses. What they claimed to find set off a media circus that nearly destroyed Tallman's reputation. According to reports, William Tallman and a group of others were found naked or half-dressed with marijuana in the room, and rumors about dirty movies and lewd photos quickly swirled in the press. Among those arrested was Peggy Louise Flanagan, who would later become Tallman's wife. The tabloids didn't hold back. They called it a nude marijuana party, and suddenly, Tallman, once seen as a respected actor, was treated like a criminal. He and the others were hit with charges of drug possession and lewd behavior. The damage was instant. Just 4 days later, CBS fired Tallman without waiting for the case to play out. No proper explanation, no apology. He was cut from the credits, his name erased from the opening titles, and his role was completely rewritten. Even though 4 episodes had already been filmed, his presence on Perry Mason vanished. But here's where it gets worse. By June, the judge had thrown the case out due to lack of evidence. The arrest had been unfair, but CBS didn't budge. They had already made their decision. For 9 long months, Perry Mason went on without its district attorney, Hamilton Berger, despite Tallman's legal clearance. Yet, Tallman wasn't alone. The cast, remarkably, stood by him with incredible loyalty. Raymond Burr, who played Perry Mason, refused to let the network off the hook. Producer Gail Patrick Jackson was also unwavering in her support. They pushed back hard, even hinting they might not renew their contracts unless Tallman was reinstated. That kind of loyalty, rare in Hollywood. Earl Stanley Gardner, the creator of Perry Mason, usually silent in matters of production, also stepped in to support Tallman. Fans, too, played their part. Letters flooded CBS, demanding his return. Even TV critics spoke out, calling it cruel and unjust to punish someone who had done nothing wrong. Though Tallman lost cases on screen every week, in real life, he had everyone in his corner. Finally, in December 1960, CBS caved, but they did so quietly. No apology, no public statement, Tallman simply returned to the show, and when his comeback episode aired, the 9-month ordeal was never mentioned. He picked up where he left off, as if nothing had happened. But of course, something had. Tallman had faced public shaming, lost work, and nearly lost his career. And yet, he never showed bitterness. He continued playing Hamilton Berger until the final episode in 1966, appearing in over 200 episodes. At one point, Tallman even joked, Hamilton Berger wasn't really a loser. In a fair justice system, failing to convict an innocent person is actually a win. It was a rare, humble perspective, especially in an industry that doesn't often offer second chances. While Tallman was slowly reclaiming his career, another Perry Mason actor was quietly fading away from the spotlight. Ray Collins, who had played Lieutenant Tragg since the beginning, began to struggle with his health in 1960. Years of smoking had taken their toll, and emphysema made it increasingly difficult for him to breathe, let alone act. As the years went on, Collins appeared less and less. The producers knew they had to prepare for his absence, so they introduced Wesley Lau as Lieutenant Andy Anderson, gradually stepping into the role. Collins stayed on as long as he could, but by 1963, it was clear he couldn't keep up. He filmed his last episode, which aired in 1964. But the team refused to let him fade away unnoticed. Raymond Burr, despite his own struggles, kept up the morale on set. By 1962, after more than 150 grueling episodes, Burr had had enough. The long hours, the endless scripts, and constant filming were taking a serious toll on him. He'd lost weight to get into character, but the stress was now catching up. Burr wanted out. He was tired. He wanted to move on, maybe try something different. But CBS wasn't ready to let go. They needed him, and they made sure he knew it, offering more money, more perks, and reminding him of the fans. The emotional appeals came thick and fast. Fans sent letters to the studio, many addressed directly to Burr, urging him to stay. Though exhausted and frustrated, Burr stayed, unwilling to disappoint his loyal viewers and the cast he had worked with for so long. Then, in 1966, CBS made one last pitch, one more season. And this time, it would be filmed in color. The promise of color was huge. TV was transitioning, and color broadcasts were beginning to boom, though only about 10% of homes had color sets at the time. It was a gamble, but CBS hoped a fresh, colorful look would boost ratings. They even made a test episode to show Burr how it could look. At first, Burr said no. He was done, but the network played the loyalty card again, and eventually, Burr relented. He agreed to one last season, willing to push through the stress for the fans. But just weeks later, everything came crashing down. Burr was at home, flipping through a trade paper, when he read the news. Perry Mason had been cancelled. No phone call, no meeting, he found out the same way the public did. After 9 years, 271 episodes, and pouring everything he had into the role, CBS dropped the axe, without even giving Raymond Burr a heads up. The sting was personal, especially after they had begged him to stay, promising him big things. The betrayal wasn't just a professional blow, it shocked everyone on set. Barbara Hale and William Hopper, longtime stars of Perry Mason, were stunned when they learned the show was ending, especially since the news broke while filming the final episode. The story, the case of the final fade-out, felt strangely symbolic. The crew made on-camera appearances, and creator Earl Stanley Gardner even played the judge in the last scene, adding a bittersweet energy to the set. The end had been looming since 1965 when CBS moved Perry Mason to a Sunday night slot against Bonanza, the TV juggernaut. The shift led to plummeting ratings, and after nearly a decade of success, CBS pulled the plug. The final episode was filmed in one intense week in April 1966, marking the end of a 9-year marathon, with 271 episodes under their belt. Raymond Burr, who'd carried the show from the start, had often worked grueling hours. By the 5th season, he was ready to quit. However, CBS convinced him to film one last season, shot entirely in color, only for the show to be cancelled just weeks later. Though the producers had enough time to plan a proper finale, the abrupt ending left a quiet, powerful mark on the show's legacy. Perry Mason had been more than a show. It was a world built over nearly a decade, and when it ended, so did a significant piece of TV history.